This was a hidden gem that was waiting to be globalized and pushed in a very aggressive way. I spent 2 years trying to buy the business from Eric. We even said, hey, do you want to buy it? Do you want to sell it? We can help you sell the business. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he didn't sell the business to us. He ended up calling me one day and said, hey, instead of you being involved as a banker or as a finance person, do you want to come and join Bricsys and be part of this growth story? So almost 5 years ago now, I became a part of Bricsys, and I would call this the scale-up phase. In the last 5 years, we've taken the business about 5x in revenue. So we are 5 times bigger in revenue. We are 3 times bigger in the number of people. So we've scaled up or maybe even 3.5 times or more. So we've scaled up the team as well at the same time. And most importantly, we've built a very large community of users around us.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Episode von CAD Talk. Mein Name ist Jörg Lantsch und in diesem Podcast spreche ich mit meinen Gästen über Software, Anwendungen, Technologien und vieles mehr rund um das Thema Computer-Aided Design. Heute geht es um eine Erfolgsgeschichte, die vor rund 20 Jahren ihren Anfang genommen hat. Es geht um die leistungsstarke CAD-Software BricsCAD. Und wir sprechen darüber mit dem CEO von Bricsys, Rahul Kejriwal. In dieser Folge ausnahmsweise dann einmal auf Englisch. Good afternoon, Rahul.
Hey, good afternoon, Jörg.
I've just mentioned the success story, which dates some 20 years back when BricsCAD originally started as an AutoCAD clone. Could you give us a brief overview of it's just a long journey?
Absolutely. And I think it's not only is it a long journey, I think it's a very exciting one. And this classic entrepreneurial story that has played out over the last 20 years. So what's very exciting is that March of 2022 was actually the 20-year anniversary of Bricsys. Bricsys was actually started in 2002, March 2002, right after the dot-com crash. And it was started by a serial entrepreneur called Eric de Keyser. Eric is actually now on his third company called Conic, which is also very exciting, doing some very cool stuff with BIM in the cloud. Please go and check it out if you have time. But he started Bricsys, which creates BricsCAD, its CAD platform, right after the dot-com crash, where he had a company called BricsNet, parts of whose IP were sold to Bentley, actually, interestingly, and make part of the Triforma product today. He was living in US at the time and came back to Belgium, his roots in Ghent, Belgium. And he started Bricsys. And in the original days, as you can imagine, it was this classic startup struggling to survive. I think the venture capital landscape in Europe was not as mature as it is today, right? So money was not as available right after the dot-com crash as well in a very nascent European market. And I think that is where starts this, this journey of determination and really sticking to your guns and building out a great product. If you were to ask me, and I'm pretty sure Eric has a better view on the history, I look at the history of Bricsys in 3 phases. I would call the first phase as this fight towards survival. You want to get a company to break even, make it profitable, make it self-sustained. And this was the really hard task that the original founder and the original team, I think Bricsys started with maybe 2 or 3 people, grew to a team of about 8 people in the beginning, and they worked very hard to build a good design platform. As you can imagine, the first step was get compatibility with AutoCAD, right? And offer an alternative. How good or bad it was, I think that, we can always go back and look at history. I think that was the first phase. That lasted for maybe, I would say, 6 to 7 years. And by that time, Bricsys started becoming a healthy organization. Then starts the second phase, and this is what I would call the innovation phase, the technology innovation phase. So the team decided, look, now that we have a healthy company, let's start reinvesting the profits that we have into creating a truly differentiated and world-class design authoring platform. And that's when BricsCAD started building a number of features. Also, its BIM and mechanical tool sets and products, right? They're all built on the core CAD, BricsCAD platform, which is, again, something that we'll get to later in the podcast and something that really makes us unique. Again, this second phase lasted for another, I would say, 6, 7, 8 years. And And then we move on to the third phase. So we started with this AutoCAD clone-like product, moved on to building out a differentiated product. During this time, BricsCAD rewrote its entire code base. Huge task, a very audacious and very courageous task to rewrite millions of lines of code, but they did it. And I think, we are reaping the rewards of that very bold decision today. Just a very simple example, BricsCAD is multi-threaded. It's a multi-threaded design platform, which is unlike any other design platform which are all 40, 50 years old now. AutoCAD, was maybe first conceived in the late 1970s, commercialized in the early 1980s. But the BricsCAD platform completely rewritten, and so can take, in the last 10 to 12 years, can take advantage of modern hardware. On average, for the same level of hardware on your laptop, we will perform 3x, 4x better. Benchmark again. Customers should, or our users should try it out for their own. They shouldn't drink our Kool-Aid. The third stage is, I would call, the scale-up stage. That's where I come into the picture. My background is in finance. So I've spent my life as a private equity and venture capital investor. My day job was buying and selling technology companies, particularly in the enterprise software space. That is what I specialized in. I've looked at many industries within the software landscape. And Bricsys was a company that I met probably 7 years ago now. I met Eric 7 years ago. We instantly hit it off. And as a people and as the team, I was very impressed. But I was even more impressed by the technology that they had built. I really felt that this was a hidden gem that was waiting to be globalized and pushed in a very aggressive way. I spent 2 years trying to buy the business from Eric. We even said, hey, do you want to buy it? Do you want to sell it? We can help you sell the business. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he didn't sell the business to us. He ended up calling me one day and said, hey, instead of you being involved as a banker or as a finance person, do you want to come and join Bricsys and be part of this growth story? So almost 5 years ago now, I became a part of Bricsys, and I would call this the scale-up phase. In the last 5 years, we've taken the business about 5x in revenue. So we are 5 times bigger in revenue. We are 3 times bigger in the number of people. So we've scaled up or maybe even 3.5 times or more. So we've scaled up the team as well at the same time. And most importantly, we've built a very large community of users around us, very loyal users who value technology, who value progress, who value our development velocity. And the final thing that I will say is that in 2018, at the end of 2018, start of 2019, as our growth rate was really spiking, we were growing almost 100% year over year at the time. We started getting a lot of purchase offers. People wanted to buy Bricsys for the platform that we built and the growth that we had. The board of directors decided to sell the business to Hexagon AB. For your listeners who don't know who Hexagon is, Hexagon AB is a very large technology conglomerate, headquartered in Sweden, public in Sweden as well, market cap of over $30 billion, with over 25,000 employees, about 25,000 employees globally. Some companies that are part of the Hexagon AB umbrella, like a Geosystems, that is a very recognizable brand, the Intergraph brand, MSC Software, which is the analysis software brand from the US. These are all Hexagon brands, including now Bricsys.
Let's come back to technology, to the BricsCAD technology. You mentioned earlier that it's all built on one software core, no matter it's 2D, 3D, BIM, mechanical, whatever. It's all on one core, why is it such a big advantage compared to competitors?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, Jorgen. I think something that we think about a lot. I will start by maybe giving the listeners a brief overview of how we think about the design world, the AEC and manufacturing world today, what we see is wrong, and how we think Bricsys fits into all of this. And that will sort of answer this one platform, one file format question. We believe that there is a democratization problem, an access problem for technology within AEC and manufacturing. software is either too complicated to use, so you need to go to university to use a CAD software today, or at least go to technical school, spend a lot of time, effort, energy, and constantly, when you're even using any platform that you use today, it can be very complicated. You're constantly going back to documentation, constantly going back to help. At the same time, software can be expensive. We all know that our industry has gone through some business model changes, moved to fully subscription, lots of price increases as well. And some of these symptoms can be seen in the data as well. I will identify 2 data points. One, many people know AEC is the second least digitized industry in the world after agriculture. And within that, the efficiency in AEC has declined in the last 30 years. It's very unique in that, right? As technology has advanced so much, efficiency in the industry has declined. That's one data point. Let's go to another very interesting data point. There is this common, I think we can all track, we all know we have good user data around the world for all the design authoring platforms. There is common understanding and agreement that there are between 10 to 15 million users of CAD, let's call it CAD, generic CAD right now, that are what you would call non-compliant. These are users who have use of CAD. Maybe they're power users, maybe they're occasional users of CAD, but these are people who are not paying for CAD today. You can call them people who are pirating CAD, maybe in some way. Now compare that to the number of users who are actually paying for CAD. That number is anywhere between 2 to 3 million only. So of the people who are non-compliant versus the people who are actually paying, that's a ratio of 1:5. Now, some might say, hey, this shows that there's a problem with the user. I personally don't believe that. I think it's a problem of the software vendor. And as an outsider, I'm not an insider of CAD, right? I come from the outside in. I feel like there are 3 or 4 problems here. There is an accessibility problem. Software is not built for the user. It's almost like software vendors are making software to be as complicated as possible to trap users in their walled garden. So there's a user UI UX problem. There is an interoperability problem. If you're in my garden, and once I get you in my garden, I'm going to close the gate and you can't get out. You're trapped in this Garden of Eden in some ways. Interoperability. Number 3, there is a accessibility problem. So I will make it very difficult for you to leave through licensing. I won't sell you perpetual. I won't sell you network or floating licenses. I will also not sell you software in a way that makes sense to you. Let's say I'm a CAD user who only uses CAD very occasionally, once in a month, once in a quarter. There are many of these people out there. CAD is a very, it's an enterprise product, but it's also in some crazy way a very mass market product as well, millions of users. I think, there is a lot of business model innovation that is required in the industry. Maybe pay per use, maybe pay to play, reduce the cost of accessing CAD to maybe a few dollars, maybe a few tens of dollars, rather than having to pay a $2,000 subscription for software that you only use a couple of times. And then the final piece is pricing. I think across the board, I see a lot of price gouging, not a lot of innovation. I think it's fine for software vendors to go in and ask customers for more money if they deliver high technology innovation. They are truly adding efficiency to the user. Great, you're allowed to ask for more money. It's a relationship, right? At the end of the day. However, what is not fine is you're trying to please the financial markets. So you deliver no innovation, but you keep, forecasting that you're going to increase prices by 10, 15, 20%. And what the surprising part is, if you go and look at the annual reports and the quarterly earnings calls of all of these big companies, they're literally telling you that, hey, we are going to keep increasing prices by, an average of between 10 and 20% every year. That means that your CAD cost will double every 5 years going forward. That is crazy for the same amount of technology that you're getting. Now, within this is where Bricsys comes in. We thought that, look, there are all of these problems. the mission of Bricsys is to help our customers build better. We want to be known as the most, I wouldn't call it loved. We want to create products that delight customers. I keep saying that internally. Some people, I think if you ask any Bricsys employee, they'll say, oh, that's Rahul wanting to delight customers. But I think it's a filter that we've built in the company. Whatever we do, we want to put on this hat or these goggles that say, will this delight the customer? And will it solve real customer problems? Good technology should fade into the background, but it feels now, right? Technology is at the center. Our customers sort of run around the technology. How do we get our people trained on Revit? Why doesn't Revit do what we want to do? So instead of trying to make better buildings, they're talking about how to make better software. Seems very strange to me, again, coming from the outside world, having seen many other software verticals. I'm always blown away by some of the inconsistencies in our market. And so BricsCAD, trying to solve all of these problems, we built all of our software. We haven't acquired any software. Everything is built in-house. What that means is that our CAD software is BricsCAD. We call it BricsCAD Core. Comes in 2 flavors, Light and Pro, depending on what you want to use. But when we thought about building our BIM workflow toolset, we just built it on the CAD platform, right? It's all DWG. It's IFC, very IFC compatible, but it's still DWG. And then we said, hey, we now need a mechanical toolset because we are big proponents of design for fabrication and assembly. We build a mechanical toolset on the same platform. What that means is, let's take the best example. If you're a company who has, you use CAD for your 2D detailing, you have a building that needs to be represented in a BIM format, in a BIM workflow, you have your BIM, and let's say you have mechanical components, escalators, elevators, anything and everything. There's so many mechanical components in a building. You can design the mechanical components in DWG. You can literally drag and drop them into your BIM model, right? And then you can take cross sections and do 2D design when you want. Think about all of the challenges it solves. So it solves the interoperability problem. You're now not trying to transfer files from, SolidWorks file format to Revit file format, from Inventor to AutoCAD to. I think it's how history has evolved, right? And it's completely understandable as these companies have gotten bigger, they've become M&A machines. As they've acquired more products, it's very difficult to go back to the source code and redo everything. We've just taken a different path. We will sell our customers this one file format, one platform solution, complete interoperability. And we also maintain, if you don't like our platform, let's say you standardize on BricsCAD, you don't like it, you can take your data anywhere, right? It's all DWG. And more than DWG, our BIM is completely IFC compliant. So our doors are always open, completely porous. You stay with us if you like where we are going. If you think we're not good vendors, you should leave. You should leave and find a vendor that serves your need, right? We want to make it as easy as possible. So I think I've gone on a long rant, but this is something that we feel deeply about.
Let's talk about the technology. You mentioned you want to delight your customers. I've seen, I think it's 3 years back, some of the AI possibilities of BricsCAD BIM. So that's would help, which really helps the customer. And it's really, when I saw it first, that's wow. Huh? Let's talk a little bit about this. What's the role of AI in your software?
I think that's a very interesting question, and I think it's very important to give the audience a flavor of how we think about AI, which is slightly different to how maybe other people are doing it in the market. I think if you go to any major conference, I think everyone does these big conferences. Just a very quick plug, the Bricsys conference is going to happen on the 31st of October. It will be in digital format. Since the pandemic, it's gone digital. Last year, we had over 4,000 users attend globally. So if anyone wants to attend, see what we're doing, how we're delighting our customers, as Jörg mentioned, please register. But when you go and look at the general discourse on AI in the design authoring world, it's mostly around generative design, right? What is generative design? You basically build an AI model. You give it some parameters, and the model sort of does some analysis based on past model. I think a lot of it is still machine learning, right? Let's be honest. Most of the AI applied in our industry is ML. And it gives you this output, which it thinks is the most efficient. And you can define which axes or which dimension you want to optimize it for. So optimize it for energy efficiency. And you get these outputs that are very cool, but not really practical, right? So manufacturability, buildability is also something that is important. So despite so much hype around generative design, if you really think on the ground for the user, there's very little application, because still today, generative design doesn't really, and I'm assuming that the technology will get better. We're very bullish on technology, and smart people figure stuff out. But still today, generative design will give you results that are not necessarily buildable, let's say. We approach it from a completely different angle. We think of, first of all, we do applied AI. What does that mean? We don't have a research team that just does some cool stuff on AI. We show it at conferences and then lock it away, right? All of our AI, we put it in our software. The first AI feature from Bricsys, I think, was implemented in BricsCAD maybe even 5 years ago now. So think about it, the earliest AI features in BricsCAD are now in version 5 or older. That's number one. So it's applied AI. We don't lock anything away. We put it in the product. We mark it beta. So I think it's important that we say that, right? Customers get to play with very new technology. We bring some excitement to the table. So it's applied AI, number one. Number two, it's not generative in nature. On the contrary, the way we think about AI is almost like an army of assistants that are sitting next to the designer, whoever the designer might be. It could be the architect. It could be a designer at a construction company. It could be an engineer. We want to take complexity and repetitive work away from the designer and allow them the ability to apply their very valuable time on higher value tasks. So we are really focused on the automation of really boring, repetitive tasks away and leave the user with more time to focus on the things that they're very good at, which is very difficult to capture for AI today. Until we get to the singularity, I think humans still add a lot of value to the build process, we feel. And so again, we are very focused on that user. We bring it back to the user. We want to delight the user. So in this case, how does it delight the user? Think about a very large skyscraper model. You have thousands of connections, and maybe one of the connections has a very particular detail. Ideally, normally what would happen in any other software, you would have to go through all of those thousands of points. You would have to click on it, open it, add the detail. Very manual task. Depending on the size of the model, can take days, hours. With BricsCAD, you go in, you select an area, you do it once, and then you select that detail, and then you click a AI tool we call Propagate. Propagate goes through your entire 3D model or your entire BIM model, identifies all of the locations in a very smart way where this detail can be applied, and makes those changes for you. Final point, and whenever our customers see it, it shows really well, right? I think when we put it on stage, everybody is blown away by the power of the product. But I think one of the things that is even more important is a lot of the times we hear from our users that they don't want to lose control of their design. I think there's a very fine balance between control and AI, which as a software vendor, we need to balance to make sure that the path to adoption is very smooth. So what we do is once the AI, this Propagate tool, makes all the changes, it gives you a very intuitive and easy to use way to check where all the changes have been made. And it's at a click, you can say, look, in these 5 places, the application is not correct, but in these other 95 places, the application is perfect. And you've suddenly saved 2 to 3 hours. What do you do with those 2 to 3 hours? Go get a coffee, or spend a lot of time thinking about how you can make the model more energy efficient, for example. I think we have several examples where, we often talk about, I always like to know what people do with the time that they save using BricsCAD products. So always fun.
That was exactly the feature I've seen on the BricsCAD conference, Propagate, which is very cool. Let's talk a little bit about technology trends which will bring the future especially in the AEC industry. You already mentioned DFMA. What is your personal view of the near to mid future?
I think DFMA definitely something that we are very bullish on. I think most of the audience knows these numbers. The buildings industry, you can define it as AEC, construction, buildings, you choose the name, is one of the largest industries in the world, but today also very energy inefficient and responsible for almost a quarter of the greenhouse gases that are emitted every year. Plus, it also churns out, maybe it's one of the most waste-producing industries. That's not surprising. Think about the scale of what we build in our industry. Our customers are building things that are truly monumental. Sometimes in the modern world, you lose the appreciation for what we can achieve through our current building capabilities. But at the same time, we need to look forward. And as a software vendor servicing this market, we need to provide tools that enable our customers to make better decisions. So this idea of this single file format, this is where it ties through. Single file format, single platform, 2D, 3D, CAD, BIM, mechanical. This was the missing link in DFMA, design for manufacturing and assembly. What a lot of analysis shows, and this applies to almost any industry or any process, if you can have a centralized location where you build the building blocks in one location at scale, you then ship all of that to the build location and assemble it, I think that clearly has 30, 40%, maybe even more. I think we are still getting good data on that. We are still in the very early stages of DFMA. But to do DFMA, you need a BIM tool and a mechanical tool to work seamlessly together. You can't be just running around with file formats going from one side to the other, because at the end of the day, you're creating almost like a mechanical assembly out of your BIM model. And that's where we think that our single file format approach is very, very approachable for our users, and provides a very interesting path. Now, very honestly, do we deliver everything that the user needs? Absolutely not. It's a journey that we are on as well. And we will keep getting better. We have very high development velocity. We are listening to the customer. We are working with many of them as the industry changes. The industry is also changing, adapting as we move towards it. But DFMA, definitely something that is very top of our list, and I think will have a meaningful impact on the carbon footprint of our industry, number one. Now, the one caveat I will make here is, look, when you're building a very large, a beautiful orchestra theater, right? Something designed by Zaha Hadid or something. Look, that's a work of art. And I don't think that goes through the DFMA process. However, 99.9% of the buildings in the world are things that can benefit a lot from design for manufacturing and assembly. And that is where we can make the largest impact on our own carbon footprint.
Isn't it just let's say I'm looking for analogies always. It's like taking over the same ideas which Henry Ford had some already a century ago with car manufacturing that you may have.
Absolutely. I think, Jörg, that's a very interesting comparison. The one thing I would say, though, is we are not trying to make cookie cutters. So we don't want every building to look the same. I think our built environment is very important. I think architects, construction company, this entire industry plays a much more important role in the daily lives of people. I've seen a lot of studies, I've seen a lot of documentaries around how the built environment can impact our mood, our thinking as we walk around. So many cities around the world are investing a lot of money in the urban environment. recently I was watching this documentary of how Paris wants to become the greenest city in Europe, for example. And so they're completely redoing their urban landscape. So what we want to do is, yes, we want to bring the efficiencies, or at least some of the efficiencies that, for example, Henry Ford got by creating this repeatable, specialized workforce and repeatable process. But at the same time, we want to leave the amount of flexibility that the AEC industry requires to deliver on the built environment as well, on the requirements of the built environment. I think Bricsys would have failed if we only deliver a very constrictive product that only allows you to make, a box. We need to give the user the flexibility to not only create the box, of course, you can create the box quickly, let's go, but at the same time allow for some flexibility. I think it's at the very top of the top range, the complex shapes where a company that we partner with very closely, Rhino, from McNeil & Associates. I think they're very good at that stuff, and we partner with them on that stuff. I think that is a very high-end, very top of the funnel product that will never go DFMA. But below that, I think it's not discrete points. I think it's a line. I think at every stage you can take advantage of different amounts of DFMA automation.
So there will be many new and exciting developments in the AEC market for sure in the next few years to come. And I'm personally looking forward to it. So, Rahul, thanks very much for this very interesting insights. Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you so much, Jörg. Really enjoyed it and very excited to speak to your audience. Thank you for the invitation.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Ihnen gefällt unser Podcast zum Thema CAD? Dann klicken Sie jetzt schnell noch auf den Abonnieren-Button und verpassen Sie auch in Zukunft keine neue Folge. Das hilft auch uns, zum Beispiel um den Podcast weiterzuentwickeln und Sie auch in Zukunft mit interessanten Themen aus der Branche versorgen zu können. Für heute sage ich Tschüss und bis zum nächsten Mal.